you for that sacred music. Did you feel the sacredness in that music? That they're not just words you sing, they're an experience to be had, an embodiment. Thank you, Unity Singers, and thank you, Ross. There was one message in that song, the message, all is welcome here. That's the truth that we teach in Unity, that we are an open, receptive space, that all is welcome here, within our community and within our very own beings. Do you step into that for yourself? Do you continuously, consistently give yourself the space? Let yourself know that all is welcome here, with your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. I think a lot of us have this intention and this idea that we want to say to ourselves and to our world, I am in a state of non-resistance. All is welcome here. I am a being of love. And then we have this little thing we call the human condition, no? The thing that even though we work at keeping the heart open, there's some kicking and some pushing and the pulling, and it says, yeah, but not that, yeah, but not that. So what do we do when we get to those stages in life or aspects in the development of our consciousness where there's a little bit of a game going on, where there's a little bit of a battle going on? About being present and being a welcoming, receptive vessel and state of consciousness for light, and seeing things that seem to be unlike light, unlike love, unlike that which we want to be an expression of. Pema Chodron says, contemplate that as long as you are too focused on self-importance and too caught up in thinking how good you are, how bad you are, you will suffer. Obsessing about getting what you want and avoiding what you don't want does not result in happiness. But there does seem to be a little programming, a little automatic running on a trail that sometimes leads us into this path of what we don't want more of. So what do we do if our principles tell us not to push it away, not to resist it? How do we step into a state of consciousness where we can be present to the full aspects of our being, not in argument with them, but also not acting from and birthing forth from that which we no longer wish to be creating in our lives? I used to lead hikes in the mountains of Virginia for an organization called the Association for Research and Enlightenment. It's an Edgar Cayce Foundation association. And they had a youth camp. And part of this youth camp was that we would take young people ages 16 to 18 out on 3-week hikes in the wilderness, 3-week treks. And we would pack up all of these goods in backpacks, and we'd go out, and there was pretty much no one in sight. And we would get little food drops, and we would do a lot of processing, and we would use nature to teach about the self and to presence these young people and what's going on with their lives. Well, I came from Colorado, and I began leading these hikes. I did it for a couple of summers. And it was interesting because one of the things that we always taught on hikes, when you take young people on hikes or anyone, is that you need to stay on the trail. When there is a trail, you need to stay on the trail. And needless to say, it's quite a temptation to get off the trail and to walk a new path. Now, I know from Colorado that the moment you get off a path, you're blazing a new what? Trail. And it's one thing if you get off that path once and you blaze a new trail. But what if the next person right after you, like young person number 2, comes and they blaze that same trail right after you? Then what happens? You start creating a pattern, a path, right? And so coming from Colorado, I was very much into this idea where you cannot get off the path, because in Colorado, the earth is so dry that if you do that, immediately you will create a trail. We had a little funny thing going back and forth, because in Virginia, it's actually quite rich and quite wet, and so the land can regenerate itself faster. But nonetheless, when you keep walking on the same path, you create marks. and you make it easier for other people to follow those marks and those trails. And once something is done over and over, it creates a habit. Do you see where I'm going? Those trails and those young people are also aspects of our consciousness and aspects of our mind. And when we create behaviors, thoughts, emotions, and patterns, and we go on them over and over, we can start creating automatic habits. And those habits can lead us into places, lead us into temptation, lead us through valleys, where we don't consciously want to go. But we have created a circuit. Now, in science, they're talking about this now, right? Has anyone seen the latest issue of Scientific American Mind? It's a good issue, and it's fascinating. But in science, they're starting to do a lot of these studies, and they're showing about our neurons firing, and they're showing about the patterns of the mind. In fact, in this latest article, and this is not meant to be depressing, but in the latest article, they said that children that grow up in a home where there's arguing and fighting, even a baby in a crib that's not in the same room, their brain shows a response, even if they're sleeping. Their brain shows a new response to that argument, to that energy, to that field of consciousness. Do we believe in fields of consciousness? So when, and the reason I say, not to get depressed is because most of us grew up in, right? We all know our own stories, but there's not a lot of people that don't have a story about something that maybe created some neural pathways that maybe weren't the ones we'd like to have right now, right? So what do we do about it? How can we use science and our spiritual practice to say, I will not be limited by these ideas that may have created paths in the ways of my thinking that lead me to places where I don't choose to be consciously when I'm sitting here making my choices and trying to bring in the life that I know I'm meant to have and meant to create. So much of what is not working for us is repeated patterned behavior, compulsive reactions in these three areas: behavior, thought, and emotion. We tend as humans to, I think, overcomplicate things. We tend to really analyze and look at the infrastructure of everything, struggle with things. At least I know I do. But thoughts are really simple, and emotions are really simple, and behaviors are really simple. They're one of two things. They lead us into places of separation consciousness, or they lead us into places of love or unity consciousness. One or the other. So if we want to deconstruct these systems of automatic behavior, we can pause for a moment and look at every thought, behavior, and action and say, is this leading me into oneness, into God, into love, into wisdom, or is this leading me into isolation, into separation, into discord? Once we make that distinction, we can move in to a new paradigm. We can move into birthing a new consciousness. Now, the truth is that even those things that lead us into the ideas of separation, with the things that lead us into the ideas of unity, they all actually lead us to wholeness, do they not? They all actually lead us into wholeness. Because everything that we breathe into with presence and with awareness leads us into wholeness. But when we become aware, we can actually make our lives easier. But again, we tend to overthink. Now imagine if you had a plant and you brought that plant home from the store and you noticed that plant wasn't growing. Would you look at that plant and say, "Why don't you love me?" Or would you say, there's some need that isn't being fulfilled here. There's something I need to listen to so that this is reaching its highest potential. If your car ran out of gas and you were on the highway, pulled over because the car ran out of gas, would you start yelling at it? Well, you might. But would you blame it? Would you keep talking to it? Here, this is a good one. Are you going to all the different areas of your life? Would you keep talking to it over and over, saying the same thing? Come on, come on. Or would that be insane? Is it going to get gas that way? Is it going to come back? What about the TV? If the TV wasn't working, say this afternoon or this evening. Just kidding. I forgot until after we planned the kirtan, right after the service, and a couple people said, "Really, on Super Bowl Sunday?" And we looked at each other and we thought, oh yeah, the Super Bowl. But what if your TV wasn't working? What would you do? Would you start crying at it? Would you say to it, "Oh, woe is me, you have failed me. You have failed me, great path in my life. You have failed me, you're not working for me"? No, you might choose to change the channel. You might choose to shift something to get full reception. And if all else fails, you may choose a new provider. Following me? But we, in the human condition, can tend to overthink things. What if, instead of overthinking things, we could just cash in on the opportunity to spiritually rewire? To simply look at things and say, here is an opportunity to spiritually rewire, to not go down that path anymore that I have taken time and time again, that has led me to the same space, led me to the side of the road out of gas, led me to a television that doesn't have reception or channels, led me to the moments in my life where I'm looking at a plant that's withering, or I'm feeling like a plant that's withering. Spiritually rewiring. Disconnecting from error thinking and connecting to what works. That's what our spiritual founders taught. That's what Myrtle Fillmore taught when she looked at her ideas, her thoughts, and her behaviors. She said not one, but all of these things together create a new body temple, create a new mind system, create a new field of consciousness, which is the fuller expression of me. Charles Fillmore experienced that, taught that, wrote about that. That is our beginning here. Engaging in spiritual deconstruction helps us shift from these moments of separation into moments of presence. Because really, any of these times where we have this error thinking, where we have separation consciousness, we're simply an ego. We're simply an ego. And if you know the acronym for ego, a lot of people say edging God out. When I'm in my ego, I'm edging God out, because if I can't be fully present with you, if I can't be fully present in my presence, then I am edging out that life, that source, that love. Not that it's not there, not that it is not absolute, completely and fully present, but that I've drawn the veil of it, veil over it, that I have pressed it out. That I have said that instead of walking along that path, I'm just going to take a detour and I'm going to go over here again. But when we pause and we stop fueling that which no longer serves the highest good of ourselves and our world, we start deconstructing the ego. Now, the ego doesn't like it. I think it's Michael Beckwith or something that says something like, a good day for God is a bad day for the ego. That's not how he said it, but it was something like that. That a bad day for the ego. So when we have our, wrestling, all this stuff, that's a good day for presence. Because the more presence and the more space we can create in our life, when we don't come from these attachments to form, these attachments to our ideas, these attachments to our reactions, and we can all fill in the blanks for ourselves. Take a moment to just breathe into something that maybe was an experience that you found yourself experiencing over and over again. You have tried to do your work with it, tried to release it, but you haven't felt a shift. Just think about something. It may be a reaction. It may be very specific to a situation or a person or a place. It may be something within your own self. It may be something that you hear yourself say all the time. Well, I'm not sure what to choose, because no matter what I choose, it's not going to be right. It's not going to be enough. No matter where I go, it's not going to be perfect. You know those catch-22s we put ourselves in? Whatever it is, fill in the blank for yourself this morning. something that you know doesn't move forward. That whatever it is, it's that pattern, and you don't move forward with it. It just seems to be on rerun, like a hamster in a wheel, over and over. When you have it, I invite you to just give it a picture. Just lift it up with a picture. Don't overthink it. You probably are tuned into knowing that it doesn't seem to lead you into this feeling of unity, consciousness, spirit, God, wholeness, oneness, love. It probably leads us into these other feelings. So the first step is to identify it. Identify that possibly I can simplify this, and it's just an overused trail. And what if every time I identified it, I looked at it and I just said, well, that's just an overused trail. Will you say that with me? That's just an overused trail. It's just an overused trail. Simplifying it. See, the ego likes to complicate it, right? Oh, I've got all these names about it. I've got 50 books about it. I have bills from 8 years of therapy about it. Not that that's not, good. That brings us to another place, of course, as well. But this is how long this story has been going, or this is how much effort I have put into it, or this is how many things I've tried, and it's still here. What if it was just simple? Now, here's the big step, right? I have a friend that's a minister that he always tells me, his name is Bob, and he's from the South. And he says, Little E, just remember one thing. If it ain't simple, it ain't truth. He says that all the time. If it ain't simple, it ain't truth. If someone's dragging you through some complicated this and that, or how you gotta do this, truth is simple. God is simple. I think that's what the master teacher taught. The radical rabbi took all of these big constructions and said, you guys are talking in A, B, C. Here's the answer, it's 3. Right? It's something totally different. It's simple. It's a reworking and a rewiring in a place that the mind wasn't even going to go. But see, the human condition is one to think, if I keep rearranging this and I keep struggling with this, someday I'm going to get there. Someday I'm going to solve it. But we know that idea that you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. We have to come from an entirely different place. And it's simple. Unplug the habit. Test it. Try it on. I invite you into a month of awareness, a month of awakening, of simplifying once we identify a habit, a pattern. And instead of doing all of the other things we've tried before, or all of the other things people have given us to put on, to simply look at it, identify, say that's an overused trail, simplify it. There's no reason to argue against it. Why? Because when I do, I am not in presence. I am actually reinforcing my habits, my behaviors, my ego. So we unplug. That's the big answer. It's that complicated. To just take a moment and unplug. To recognize that we have the power to rewire, to spiritually rewire in every moment. And then see what's there. The human condition wants external causes to change so that we can make an internal shift. The human condition wants the external causes to change so that we can make an internal shift. Can you see how crazy that is just by saying it? Well, because if the causes change, there's going to be a shift, right? But that's not where the real shift happens. If the shift happens here, then the external can shift and can change. And regardless of what happens on the external, when the shift happens in here, we are in peace and we are in presence. And that's our divine birthright. Think about football. How many times does a player run the same play, right? They have their plays, they figure them out, they decide them. How crazy would it be, or how would someone ever get to something like the Super Bowl if they took a play that was totally insane and they just kept running it? They just kept running that play. over and over, even though it didn't work. Would they be in the big game? Look at me talking like I have any. It just worked with the talk. I stuck it in there for you because I love you. If it ended in failure each time, we would take that play out of the game. And in your language, there might be time for an interception. Yeah, I'm pushing it here. But if we did a spiritual interception and took it and went in a different direction, we will experience shifts in our life. So we can ask ourselves this question: is the thought, word, action, or behavior leading me into separation from myself, from God, and from others? Is it leading me into fear and fragmentation? Is it closing my heart? Is it moving me away from my nature? Or is it moving me into my nature, into wholeness, into love, into an open heart? Now, the big key here that's beyond the other key is a tool that we all know about, but probably underutilize: meditation. Meditation is that divine opportunity that increases the space and the quiet inside, the space and the pace inside, so that we can identify and simplify and unplug more gracefully, more easily, and more readily. So this week, this month, I invite you into this practice: increasing the space within, identifying, simplifying, and simply unplugging from the actions and turning and tuning into complete awareness, breathing into. This is not rejecting the pattern, it's learning it, watching it, but not solidifying a new trail, not going down that same path. And in fact, if you would, just close your eyes, if you choose for a moment. You had the image before of whatever it is that is that path that you may have taken too many times, or maybe it was inherited, maybe it was taught to you, maybe it's a neuron that went crazy. And you have an idea or a picture or a feeling of it. And now just picture a trail, a hiking trail, a beautiful hiking trail. And this beautiful trail is a line of great soil leading to a mountaintop. And then you see that path where you went off into the dark woods many times, and you see how many times your feet have walked it. And just put a little sign up. Just put a little sign up there that reminds you to stop and sit and meditate, that says, this is just an overused trail. Do not enter. It's just an overused trail. And if you find yourself in that space of meditation and you can see that picture, just find yourself there with an open heart, choosing to powerfully, in spiritual strength, with the allness of the Great Spirit, walk past that trail. When you do, when we do, when the world does, consciousness is reborn. Coming back to this space, just an overused trail. But by not taking that trail, consciousness is reborn. And we recognize in those moments that peace is worth it. There is a way we end a lot of meditation practices, and it goes something like this: by the power of this practice, may all beings have peace. By the power of this practice, may all beings have freedom from suffering. By the power of this practice, may all beings reach enlightenment. Namaste.